What a wonderful time we've had celebrating unelected power. Not the Jubilee, it's been Davos last week. But if you think they're up to anything there, all those heads of state and heads of big companies, and Klaus Schwab, you're a conspiracy theorist. Hey, you 5.6 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining us on this channel where we hope to bring you light and truth and the tools to discern and find your own wisdom, to create your own views and opinions, to understand when media is lying to you and to understand how you can respond to it more sensibly. It's been Davos, Klaus Schwab and Albert Bourla together again. Bourla and Schwab, they come together, they think they're so clever. It's Bourla and Schwab. Oh, please behave yourself. If you want to join my community, you should join my community. Sign up to my mailing list. There's a link at the end. And also on July 10th, we're doing a one-day community event. Think of it as the Davos of the people. There's a link in the description. Wim Hof's going to be there. Vandana Shiva. Elders, proper elders that will teach us skills. The opportunity to educate ourselves, to change ourselves. Now, let's get on to that other event that celebrates community and collaboration. Davos. Bourla and Schwab have been talking about how unfortunate it is that the world has become beset by conspiracy theories. Why do you believe in so many conspiracy theories? Why am I willing to entertain conspiracy theories? Let's look at a private event that none of us were invited to, where the CEO of Pfizer and an unelected official talk about power and how power operates.
We knew that there is a very fanatic group of anti-vaxxers.
It's weird that only one side of the argument are fanatical. Just in the simple terms of exchanges of energy, you can't have one fanatical group because that fanatical group would get their way. I feel like I remember seeing people going, if you're not vaccinated, it's the worst thing in the world, they're causing all these problems. Lots of things that weren't considered were natural immunity, hybrid immunity, all emergent facts, questions around certain vaccines, the funding of certain vaccines, laboratories in Baltimore that had to destroy batches, yellow card events. There are a lot of things to consider. Again, let me tell you, I don't mind what you do medically. You shouldn't mind what I do medically. We're meant to be free. We're meant to be able to have these kind of conversations. You can't just say one side is fanatical, but the other side are balanced and reasonable. Let me tell you where else we've seen that template. You see that in foreign wars. Oh, they're fanatical over there, they're religious. We're just going to rationally drone them to death. Rationalism is the ideology that power uses to underwrite new tyranny. We're doing this because it's reasonable. We're following the science. People, why won't you follow the science? Well, what science? The problem with following the science is the science follows the money. I'm not trying to make any endorsements. I just want openness and the critical tools, which is truth, to be available.
That will go after us no matter what. They will claim that the sun didn't go up because people were vaccinated.
What this conversation, and in particular that answer, is doing is equating dissent with hysteria. To question power is a kind of madness. Oh, questioning whether the sun's going to come up. No, why don't we have an open and honest conversation? This is meant to be a forum where you're discussing the efficacy of your product, the ethics of making that much money during a pandemic, an open, transparent conversation. Is there sufficient investigation into alternatives, into options, into the efficacy of lockdowns? Unless you're doing that, you can't accuse your opponents of being hysterical. Unless, this is another crazy thing, this is my theory, if you say that dissent is hysterical, you only leave one option open. If you say to question authority is a kind of madness, then what opposes authority? If the only people that doubt you are mad people and conspiracy theories, that means that by default what you're saying is true. So do you think Davos is about an investigation into truth, about proposing new ideas that are beneficial for everybody? Or do you think it's about controlling the narrative and shutting down dissent and stigmatizing opposition? Answers in the comments.
So I think that's behind us. Everything went okay, and now I think we can move on.
How can you say that? There's so many questions left. There's been so much money made. There's so much inquiry, so much doubt, so much concern, so many consequences. Mental health pandemic, opioid crisis, addiction problems. This isn't something like where we can just move on. So many inquiries about the efficacy of particular branches of that medicine. Inquiries about, like remember that Pfizer wanted to boot the files explaining their clinical trial process 75 years into the future. Does that sound like transparency? We might as well move on. There's nothing to see here. How can you possibly say that? Like, if you just include things like they were given immunity from prosecution before they embarked. They made incredible profits. They tried to boot the file 75 years into the future like it was the murder of JFK. Those are not the preconditions for an open debate, particularly when they stigmatized and attacked anybody that was just remotely inquiring, doubtful or dubious about following the agenda of companies that have a deep, long history of paying out lawsuits for malpractice.
I think we were both targets of the anti-vaccine movements and conspiracy people. I think it got hundreds of thousands of clicks and so on.
Just imagine all those people clicking away over Klaus. Klaus, you haven't got a cat. I know, but imagine the clicks.
I know you were also target.
I read one day that was arrested by FBI.
Yeah, same happened to me.
And there are pictures of me and FBI officers. I don't know how.
Yeah.
But I never said.
Just a little bit of factual information. Pfizer is among the big pharma companies trying to block legislation strengthening whistleblowers' ability to report corporate fraud. So they think it's so funny that they're willing to block legislation that allows people to work at those corporations to transparently declare what they've witnessed while working there.
The surprising thing it is that the same publication, I found out because I had published, the previous one that was arrested was the Pope.
Yes, and the Catholic Church have got nothing to worry about when it comes to transgressive behaviour.
By FBI. So...
Again, that's just the comfort and assuredness of people ensconced in power. There's serious corruption within the Catholic Church. There's serious corruption with the Vatican. That might not be comfortable for you. It's certainly not comfortable for me. But it's a fact. And the same fact is they've paid out huge fines in the past because of various forms of malpractice. They've irresponsibly promoted drugs. And it's pretty clear, even from other meetings in Davos, that they conduct their research according to profit. That doesn't make these individual people, even Klaus Schwab and Albert Bourla, I'm not suggesting they're anything other than human beings like you and me. I'm not suggesting that. They're just in situations and conditions and systems that mean that they have to serve profit, mean they have to centralize power, mean they have to shut down dissent, mean they have to create means to generate relationships and revenue that exist outside of democracy, because if it existed within democracy, there'd be a way to shut it down. They have to circumvent the power of ordinary people continually, even if that's the power of dissent, in order to continue with their business model. This isn't like, they're lizards from another dimension. I don't care about stuff like that. It's not helpful. What I believe is happening is that they exist outside of the law and are able to manipulate outcomes favorably due to the nature of the relationships they have nationally and globally.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, so we are a good company.
Well, at least I was in good company.
Yeah.
Well, that's Klaus Schwab and Albert Bourla's take on the pandemic and conspiracy theories. Let's give you some other information. Pfizer has made nearly $26 billion in revenue in the first 3 months of the year, the bulk of it from COVID-19 and a new pill to treat the virus. Now, I suppose the narrative they invite you to accept is that they came up with an ingenious new cure and they should have those profits. Even if you just want to look at it in those simple terms, you have to acknowledge that taxpayer money went into the development of the vaccines that they profited from. They were granted immunity from prosecution. So instead of chuckling away at the WEF, what they should be discussing is, would it be fair and right if some of the profits from that vaccine went back into the communities, nations and systems that funded it in the first place? At the root of the Pfizer model are a set of intellectual property rules laid down in trade deals. These effectively allow big pharma corporations to operate as monopolies with no responsibility to share the knowledge they own. That's all cool, but that means it is big business. It's not community, no pat on the back, no Pfizer tattoos, no Pfizer jackets. It's a big company that's interested in making profits and serving the interests of their shareholders. That's no problem. You might be down with that sort of stuff, but don't treat them as if they're saints and laugh and, oh, we're in the same company as the Pope. Bourla and Schwab present the idea of conspiracy theories as ridiculous, as risible, worthy of laughter and derision. But the fact is, they are talking about a product that was developed with taxpayer dollars. That's your dollars, your money that you earned. Then those products were purchased with taxpayer dollars or pounds or francs or whatever the hell it is in your country. That's again money that you earned, your money. They were granted immunity from prosecution. They lobby their governments. They're in positions of collaboration, if not conspiracy, throughout the system of their profiteering. So saying that, oh, it's silly to suggest that they'll be dragged off by the FBI is one thing, but the idea that there isn't a conspiracy in terms of cooperation between powerful interests that excludes and prevents the intervention by means of democracy or ordinary people, that's hardly a conspiracy theory. And the fact that it's legal makes it worse. It shows you that the system is set up to facilitate these kind of endeavours, this kind of agenda. And if you oppose it or say you don't want to participate for whatever reason, and there could be thousands thousands and thousands, then you are the problem. Then you are the butt of a joke at a billionaire conference where they can just sit back, lounge, twiddle with their ties, stroke their pussies and laugh at you while you fund it. Companies like Pfizer behave more like hedge funds, buying up and controlling other firms and intellectual property rather than traditional medical research companies. So Pfizer might present themselves as we're in the laboratory tweaking the microbiology, but actually they're in boardrooms and on stock trading floors, acquiring smaller companies, buying up stuff, purchasing patents, shutting down research, not allowing other countries or continents with less resources to have access to those medicines. And if, by the way, the medicine is only to help people, why wouldn't you grant it? You know, why Bill Gates? Why Albert Bourla? Well, I would say because primarily they're interested in profit and they don't. So, you know, this allows them to monopolize that knowledge and maximize the price of the result in medicines. Pfizer has channeled $70 billion to its shareholders directly through dividend payments and through stock buybacks. So again, when we talk about wealth transfer during the pandemic, this is how it happened, because your money developed the product, your money purchased the product, but when it came to profit, off to the shareholders. Okay though, but is there any reason why the government wouldn't step in and regulate these practices, prevent them, make it easier? Because it's a democracy, right? Definitely not a conspiracy, definitely aren't people in government supporting these ideas and preventing change happening. At least 11 senators and 34 representatives of the House held Pfizer shares in 2020. That's during the pandemic. So when they're granting the immunity and spending the money, do you think the fact that they personally profit influences them? Tell me in the comments what you think. Tell me what your life has shown you. Lawmakers held these investments as Congress authorized more than $10 billion to help drug companies develop and distribute the vaccines and forced health insurers to cover the cost of getting the shot. Now, isn't that a racket? Like, we're going to give you public money to develop these products. We've developed these products. Cool. How much are they? They're fucking expensive. It was very, very expensive to develop these drugs. Yeah, we know. We gave you the money. Pfizer spent substantial amounts of money lobbying the federal government in 2020. What a coincidence. Pfizer PACs and individuals who work for the pharmaceutical giant contributed more than $4 million to candidates and committees in the 2020 election cycle. Oh, conspiracy. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla said that a fourth dose of the COVID-19 vaccine will be necessary to continue to help hospitalizations manageable and sicknesses more mild, despite debate among scientists and a lack of evidence either for or against another booster. If there's no evidence for or against, which way do you think Bourla's going to go? What does Bourla's history, what do the prices of his medicines, what do the dividends paid to shareholders tell you? Which way do you think Bourla will go? Do you think he's neutral? Do you think he's in a position to laugh at you, questioning his motives? In November 2021, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla said people who spread misinformation on COVID-19 vaccines are criminals. Criminals. Misinformation. Is misinformation simply to inquire? Is it disinformation to question a machine that generates so much profit when its fuel comes from you, from the public? You put in the gas, they enjoy the ride. Anyway, have you ever wondered why Davos has such a limited demographic of people discussing stuff? Rich CEOs, rich Klaus Schwab, rich other folks. Let's have a look why that could be. To even be eligible to receive your prized invitation to the annual meeting in Davos, one must purchase an organisational membership package to the World Economic Forum. For the WEF even to consider a candidate for a Davos invite, they must first be affiliated with an organisation that is willing to pay for membership and partnership fees that range from $62,000 to $625,000. Who is able to participate in a conversation that costs $625,000 to even open your mouth? What kind of objectivity are you going to get in that kind of context? Also, what are you offering your partners in order for them to cough that up? No wonder they're all laughing at his jokes. They probably own shares in Pfizer. And if they don't, they operate within collaborative organisations. I'd laugh if I was involved in that conversation. Invitees pay a minimum of $28,000 for their ticket to the conference. Most choose the all-access white badge, which costs a reported $50,000 for the 4-day event. I'd want a lot more than a white badge for that. I'd want a white pussy on my lap to stroke the whole way through the conference. Transportation to the event will cost a minimum of $1,000 each way via automobile, although many of the guests fly in on private jets and helicopters. Overnight accommodations start at around $1,000 for the equivalent of a room in a cheap motel, but can easily reach as high as $140,000 a night for a private chalet. With this enormous inflow of capital, the WEF brought in some $45 million in revenue for the supposed non-profit 2020 confab. $45 million non-profit. That's a lot of money to not make any. What are they doing with that money? How much are they certainly not spending it on the backdrop or the tech? The audio is terrible. The bottom line is no one's getting into Davos without dropping at least $100,000. Per Open the Books, The WF is subsidized in part by US taxpayers who were forced to deliver $60 million to the outfit over the course of the last 8 years. So there you go. You paid for those drugs to be developed. You paid for those drugs to be administered. You paid for them to sit around in suits and laugh at you and laugh at the idea that you might have any doubts at all about the motivations of these billionaires at their billionaire conference. And if you want to dissent, or if you want to ask a question that's not a softball puff piece question, then you better have $100,000 at the ready, $100,000 a night to pay for accommodation and be able to drop $1,000 even to get there, because that is the level of open, transparent debate that you'll be getting at Davos. And if you want to question it, then you have the problem. You're the conspiracy theorist. That is the world you live in. Do you want to change it? Are you ready yet? Tell me when you're ready in the comments below. That's just what I think. Who am I? I'm a crazy guy. I've got a tinfoil hat around here somewhere. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, share it around. Let's keep this conversation going. Get involved. You are the only thing that can oppose this. It's vital that you subscribe to our channel. We're doing a one-day event on July the 10th. There's a link in the description. You can come along. Wim Hof, Vandana Shiva, people talking about community. Any money that we make will go to drug addicts and mentally ill people. And when I say drug addicts, I mean drug addicts that are trying to get clean. It's vital that if you enjoyed this video, you watch one of these two, and it's vital that you sign up to my mailing list so I can continue with the conversation with you. If ever we find out that like big tech corporations are somehow involved in this, we'll need to be able to communicate with you more directly. Anyway, more important than any of this stuff is that you please stay free.